Hello and welcome back to Crossroads of Cognizance. I am part of this team where we talk about all things metaphysical, spiritual, things that are occurring on the East Coast as a trend, things that are occurring on the West Coast, and then interesting daily conversations that we're having with customers often inspire these conversations. So when you join our little corner of the internet, what you're getting is um, feedback on healer insights and hopefully ways that you can implement different things in your life or just a different perspective. And we'd love to hear yours too. So if you find value in the show, or if you don't, you're just like, two ladies complaining, man. Give us that
That
like,
too.
subscribe. Give us that like and subscribe. Follow us wherever you're finding us, and catch us here most Thursdays of the month. So
Most Thursdays, yeah, we do
most
pretty well.
right. So if this is your first time joining us, I am Dahlia Rose over here on the East Coast, holding down the fort at Crystal Cognizance, where we serve our community with spiritual teachings because we started classes back up, yay, after 2 years. And we do healing work, readings, and so crystals and other spiritual tools. And we're expanding into different things. We have cards now, books. It's all fun stuff. But that's what we're doing on the East Coast over here in good old Woodbridge, Virginia.
West Coast, I'm Katrina Raspold. I'm half of the ownership of Crossroads Metaphysical Store that I run with my husband in Shingle Springs, California. And we have been doing this retail wise for about 8 years. We have been almost 4 years in this location. And we offer, in addition to retail, things like crystals and tarot cards and books and um, incenses and oils and handmade hoodoo products. We also offer services such as readings, cleansings, healing work, classes, and then Eric does singing bowl harmonic healing as well. So, yeah, we run a lot of classes in person. Most of them are free. And we are going to be transitioning the business to completely online in October. So there will be some virtual classes coming up then once we get settled into that modality as well. So, what you get to do with Dahlia and I is that you get to be the fly on the wall that gets to overhear the conversations that happen between professionals about different thoughts and ideas, as well as the some of the conversations that are not confidential that we have with our clients that
Right.
bring up some concepts that people might be interested in on a wider scale level. And so we get together briefly before each broadcast. What have you got? What have you got? And you get to hear two ladies bitch about it. And that's what we do.
Bitching indeed.
Bitching
And it's a
indeed.
bitching good time
It's
in
a
the
bitchin' good time.
so you know like Katrina said, these are obviously non-confidential topics, but not but and what we find is that we are able to share with people around us, but they share and we learn just as much from them. And so, even in our classes, like a lot of times, we have these amazing students that think outside the box, and it's like, wow, we get expanded as teachers and healers. So, today, what we're covering on the topic is cleansing versus healing. We might have touched on this a little bit in other broadcasts, but found myself in a conversation a couple weeks back that I thought was interesting. Basically, the concept of, when do you use one versus the other? What do they really look like? I think that with mainstream, like spirituality coming to the forefront, there seems to be a heavy presence for cleansing, but healing is sort of getting lumped into that, and they are actually quite different, and have different applications. And so, what better way to have that discussion? And the beautiful thing about being on the fly on the wall for this show is we haven't had any pre-talks about this, so you're getting that first thought, that first inspiration with us here. And we'd love to hear your experiences in the comments as well. And I want to say this after all of my my long-windedness. Facebook is weird. So if you're catching this broadcast on a page and you want to participate, make sure that you click on the video so that you can actually leave comments that we can see, because otherwise, this might have been shared and we won't see it. And we love to hear from you guys and what your experiences are. So cleansing versus healing. That's where we're going to start. But we have
Also, I'm sorry to interrupt. I
Yeah.
also wanted to throw in there that if you are watching this in archive, we will still respond to your comments. If you comment on YouTube or you comment on the video itself on Facebook, Dahlia and I will see your comment and we will respond to any questions or thoughts that you bring up that need addressing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, where do we begin? Cleansing versus healing. So the heavy prevalence of cleansing in the spiritual community. I think it's important to sort of define these concepts. As far as I'm concerned, if you're coming to me for a cleansing or if you're asking me about it, cleansing are what you do in between the healing process. So it's spiritual maintenance, spiritual hygiene, just in the way that you would take a shower in whatever prevalences that may be. If you've got eczema, you're probably not showering as often, what those kinds of things. And then even to bring like a regular everyday shower into the conversation. Soaps are important. What kinds of cleansing tools are you using? Is it liquid soap versus bar soap? Is it kind of feel like Forrest Gump listing off, the basics
Liquid
of
soap,
showering.
bar soap, goat's milk soap, gelatin soap.
And they all have like a valuable additive to your shower experience. But if your goal is to get deeply cleansed, you might be reaching for that, what's it called, like Dr. Teal's or something,
Mm-hmm.
versus your quick hoe bath where you're like, okay, I just need my quick liquid
You
soap.
just said hoe
And
bath out loud.
I did. That's the thing. Like, sometimes you need to,
Gladys calls it tits, pits, and slits.
Yeah, I mean it's real life. So what you use in those interims are basically like the same that you can use in your spiritual cleansing process, even down to Katrina and Eric make spiritual soaps for different purposes. And so this is part of the cleansing process. Now, what how do you define cleansing, or what does that look like for you, Katrina?
So the practice that I have actually incorporates both into a single session.
Okay.
So if I'm doing a cleansing on somebody and I feel a place that's vulnerable, I'm going to be working to heal that with some Reiki energy or
Right.
focused energy in some way. So for me, it kind of goes hand in hand. But really, what I see is the difference is that westernized medicine has taught us and conditioned us to believe that healing is a passive experience.
Yes.
So you need to go to the doctor to be healed. You need to go to the hospital to be delivered of a baby. No, we don't even say that the mother's delivering the baby anymore.
Right.
Even though she is the one giving birth, we say the midwife delivered the baby. And the midwife just caught the baby. The
Right.
mother delivered the baby. But we have learned over time to be very passive in regard to healing. So the way I look at it is that cleansing, the act of cleansing, is a very passive experience. When I'm cleansing somebody, I tell them to go into full receptivity mode and just let me work on them. So I am the one doing the active cleansing. If I'm working on specifically a healing, I need their participation. And so for me and a lot of, if you want to say new age healers that I know, our idea is that healing is interactive rather than passive.
Right.
So I need them actively focusing on the part of the body that I'm working on. I need them being very verbal with me about what they're feeling or ideas, emotions that are coming up as I'm working on this. Returns to past trauma as I'm working on this. And so it's a super interactive thing, whereas just cleansing somebody out, I say just cleansing, it's a huge benefit, but cleansing somebody out tends to be more, you know what, you chill, let me do this.
Right.
And so that's how I would really define the two there. But it's, for me, a lot of times that does happen simultaneously. And so, it can be a single process. And when you were talking about spiritual hygiene, that is so important. I can't even emphasize it enough. There are so many, I would say easily, let's do a guess, probably 3/4 of people in the entire world never have a spiritual cleansing experience. And
Yeah.
that's like never getting your teeth cleaned. And if you don't shower, you become socially repugnant. And if you don't shower, you're going to get places of your body that are starting to break down
Right.
if you don't
Rash.
clean. And it's the same way spiritually. If you don't have spiritual cleansings, you get socially repugnant. You have so much negative and toxic stuff around you, not from being an asshole, not from, huge traumas, but just from the general exposure to negativity that we have in our lifetime, in our modern lifetime. And you have to get that cleaned off so you can feel light and engaged and um, organic to yourself, I guess is what I would say. Because really, when we're cleansing, what we're doing is we're removing any energy that doesn't inherently belong to you.
Right.
And that's what you're doing when you take a shower. You're getting something off of you that isn't supposed to be there, that doesn't belong to you, or isn't part of your healthy body.
And it's worth, talking about the accumulation. Like you said, it's what you naturally pick up. So there's a, you know just as much as you would step outside and get dirt on your shoes, there's going to be an amount of that is normal. There's going to be an amount of that is, you can remain functional. But then that heaviness, that, like, if you're feeling a space between you and your social counterparts, it's worth asking the question, what's going on? Have I, accumulated too much? Or if it's not even a social thing, it could be family, it could be the space between you and you, like Katrina said, getting you back to your organic self. I often get the question, uh, what, like, how often do you do cleansings? I will say, as far as my work's concerned, cleansing and healing can happen at the same time. The times that they're often separate is I tend to get clients with like a lot of heavy energy, like not heavy energy, but heavy issues like sexual assault or, um, you know, uh, at like deep traumas that have extended through their years, that, coupled with therapy, if working with me and coupling it with therapy really makes a difference, because they get the therapeutic conversations and tools from their therapist, but then I get to work on their bodies in the interim and their energy in the interim. And so the cleansing process, so to define, the cleansing piece, we're looking at deeper work. Now, if you find yourself, I guess if you find yourself in need of a cleansing, and maybe this isn't a hard and fast rule, that's kind of why I'm looking off and considering as I say it. If you find yourself in need of a cleansing for an extended period of time, you may want to consider adding healing work to that process, or that this is more than a cleansing can deal with. Um, as far as quantity, I think cleansings are, depending on your situation. Like, let's say you have a light situation, life's actually going pretty well for you. I'm looking at cleansing once or twice a month spiritually, but increasing when there is shifts, changes, heavy things going on in my life. I want to be as clear and available as possible. And so at that point, cleansings more often seem more appropriate. especially if you're dealing with, I mean, like even like court cases or things that are going to be hitting you one after the other. And then one maybe that's not commonly talked about, but uh, like if you're in a job situation that is toxic or a family situation that's toxic and you can't immediately remove yourself, you're still strategizing an exit plan or change, right? So those would require more cleansing, but there's definitely space to say, okay, well, if I do the healing work, I may be able to withstand more. I will be able to hold more of myself in those scenarios to where I will walk away with less of their energy and more of mine intact. So, long rest.
I definitely agree with all of that. You know, we each and every one have an energy baseline or an
Yes.
energetic baseline. And this is where we normally vibrate at without any external influence whatsoever.
Hmm.
And that is our own organic truth. That is who we are and where we are in our life process. And sometimes it's who we are in our soul process. And a lot of people never get to feel that organic baseline because they never get other people's shit off of them.
Mm.
And so they don't ever get to feel themselves. And this is especially true with people who identify as being particularly empathic
Yes.
because they're always feeling what's coming off of other people and can never actually feel their own emotions because they're so swamped with the emotions of other people. And so we do certainly want to have people find that baseline so they know who they are. And once you find that baseline and you recognize your own energy that's just you, it becomes easier to identify energy that's coming in from the outside
Mm.
because you know what you feel like and you can isolate from that. And you were talking about how often should a person get cleansed, and that really depends on how high risk your life is. What is your level of exposure? Now, with me and you, we have to get cleansed way more often
Right.
than most people will because we have a frequent exposure to the negativity of others. People do not normally seek us out on their best day.
No.
And so they're usually in a state of crisis, and we're having exposure to that all the time. There are going to be a lot of other high risk professions like law enforcement and social work and even childcare and
Right.
restaurant work are places where people are often very emotional when you're
Yeah.
dealing with them. And so that's going to put you in the line of fire for a lot of negative interaction with people that you have to navigate and make okay. And anytime you're having to mitigate the negativity of other people, it's going to have an impact on your spirit. So if you're in a high risk place, you're going to need it more often. But if you're an average person that works in a great environment, has a fantastic relationship with your family, and feels really good about where you are and what you're doing, you might only need to cleanse maybe once or twice a year.
Oh.
And from my perspective, as far as just getting a full cleanup. Now, what you have to look at, and we can go metaphor again here, is if you have a house and you're paying a maid to come in and clean the house,
Right.
and you think about that, if she's having to scrub, muddy boot prints every single day and having to wipe down the walls of blood every day, there comes a point where we have to say, do we want to keep paying her to do all this work, or do we just want to clean up what's causing all this debris in the house? And to
Right.
me, that's the difference in cleansing and healing.
Yes. Absolutely.
Is yeah, so we want to look at the idea of, yeah, we can just clean all this up. It was a one shot, it was a one off, and we're going to get the house all clean and perfect, and I can maintain it moving forward. But if somebody's coming in with their muddy dirt boots and throwing blood everywhere every day, we've got to look at what's causing this chronic contamination.
Absolutely.
And that's where the healing process comes into play.
Beautiful metaphor. And I think it brings presence to, expectation, as far as like I've had people go, oh my God, I must not be cleansing enough, or I must be going through these different circumstances because I need a cleansing. And it's like, well, you know, part of life, first of all, we're not meant to avoid life. So you're going to live, you're going to have different experiences. And maybe this is a spiritual strengthening point. You know, you're getting
Mhm.
this to reach that evolutionary point. And we, like, have said many times on the show, most people don't evolve except at the point of pain.
Yes.
Now, that's not wishing it on anybody or saying that anybody's supposed to go through pain, but pain is relative. You know, Katrina and I have both talked about our divorces, and or I think I've said this about mine, but it was a painful experience, and it had to do with my makeup and how I am, registering in response to a relationship. But the pain of my divorce and how it played out for somebody else might have been a walk in the park. And so, that said, I could either be like, well, because this is so painful, I need to cleanse repeatedly, or look at the source of the pain. Why is it like this? Where did this come from? Where are the beliefs tucked into my body, tucked into my spirit and energy? And then go from there. And that's really the larger conversation that needs to be had. Is this a repeat scenario? If it's a one-off, like Katrina said, you can cleanse and move forward. But if there are holes, cracks, leaks in your aura, or this is a karmic thing, if you believe in karma, or even down to those like twin flame soulmate connections, if you keep repeating certain cycles, there's probably a wound there trying to be healed, not necessarily cleansed, with the expectation that once you cleanse, you will never have to deal with this again. And in the list of professions that you listed off, what came to my mind is hairdressers.
Oh
So,
Lord, yes.
you have your hands in somebody's
Bartenders.
hair. Bartenders too.
Yeah.
You know, hair, nails,
Hmm.
anything with what's it called?
DNA. Yeah.
Um, DNA, or even keratin,
Hmm.
is going to hold history. And you are putting your hands in that and becoming eyeball deep in that person's energy and what they'd been through up to the point that they come and see you. And you might think, oh, I'm just going to wash my hands in between and be fine. No.
No.
And at both barbershops and hairdressers, people are unloading their drama openly.
I worry about pawn shop owners.
Oh, that's a good one. And antique stores.
Right, antique stores too. With pawn shops specifically, most people are bringing stuff in when they are just wretchedly at their lowest. And
Mm,
so that's carrying a lot of energy of desperation. They're
yeah.
usually not happy with the amount of money they're going to get in that pawn transaction. Plus, you've got their physical, tangible, shitty stuff there that has what kind of energy with it. So it's kind of a crap shot as to the energy that's going to come into your place at any given time.
And they're just the doorway, right? Like that thing is going to pass through them onto the next person. Nobody's considering what was attached to it prior to.
Right.
So yeah, that actually absolutely
Absolutely.
fascinating points.
You brought up blame and self recrimination for needing frequent cleansings. And I run into that a lot with my people. And they'll just say, I don't know what I'm doing wrong, that I feel contaminated all the time. And that usually, as you pointed out, is an underlying healing issue that needs to be addressed. But also, I think about people that are leaving me and returning to the same situation that was toxic and got them dirty the first time. And
Mhm.
so what I tell them is, hey, I can dress Dahlia up in a pretty little Easter dress, and have her sparkling clean, and I did my job. And she goes out to play and immediately jumps her ass into a mud puddle and sits down in it. I can't change what happens when that person walks out my door.
Right.
And if you're going out and engaging in behaviors that are risky energetically and are going to put you in the line of fire, you're going to need to get cleaned all the time. And there's no blame to be had for that. But
Right.
acknowledge that that's what's going on instead of standing there looking at me going, I don't know how my dress got muddy, Miss Katrina. You know,
I mean, I think that that ownership piece also allows some of the energy to slide off. Like when I look at I guess maybe this is like a maybe a dense extreme topic, but like possession, right?
hmm
It people the less you know about yourself, the less that you are engaged with your personal power and knowledge, the more things can attach to you, the more things can invade. And so if you are going out there saying like, I don't know how this happened, and you haven't taken the time or sat down with a counselor or, spiritual counselor, whatever you're going to do, then the I guess the mystery remains, right? And so here's a point of maybe potential self cleansing is to find the hole and plug it up instead of thinking that it is mysterious. It's not. And at the very least, you can source your feelings on that rather than searching out the person who cursed your family 2 centuries ago
right.
that you don't have access to. Um, there's a lot of empowerment in that self knowledge piece.
And it's really easy with a cleansing, particularly, to blame what is coming up in the cleansing on what's wrong in your life.
Hmm.
And sometimes it is that, hey, you did have a pretty hefty curse on you, and you remove it and the person feels better and they feel clean. But a lot of times, you know, it's not what's in the jar. It's what attracted what was in the jar.
Right.
Why did a person put a curse on you? Now, granted, there are people out there who will gladly and
Just do
happily
it.
and willingly curse the shit out of you and not even look back. There's people that'll spend weeks or months feeding a negative spell against a person and never admit it or never own up to it or brag about it.
Right.
And if that's happening, you're having negative energy come at you all the time. And that would need to get cleaned up if you're not shielding against it, if you're not creating boundaries to make yourself safe. But there's some people who intentionally go out and antagonize other people. There are people who actually get off on poking the witch, and trying to make them an adversary to show how what a badass they are.
Yep.
And so, really, it's got to do, like we were saying, with your level of risk in the type of life you lead and what behaviors are leading to this ongoing recurrence of needing all these cleansings. Now, for us, we know exactly what the behavior is. It's the fact that we're dealing with high risk people all the time.
Right.
We know where it's coming from. And I don't know about you, but it's really hard for me to differentiate between, okay, I feel really funky. I know I just worked on this person who had a lot going on. Is this from them or is this something that I manifested on my own or, got hit by something completely external? I put it as, I am the healer. I'm not the detective.
Hmm.
So with myself and with others, I don't usually go heavily into who sent this curse or who shot this person. I'm the doctor that's fixing the wound. So I tend to just do the thing of patch them up, talk to them a little bit about what they think might be going on. But I'm not going to go back and try to find out who cursed you.
Yeah, I'm learning from you, my teacher. um, but even prior to experiencing class with you, it just has never been productive to go on that witch hunt, so to
Nope,
speak. Because one, and this is what I usually explain to people, is that it reconnects the energy. If I
it
tell
does.
you it was your sister-in-law, dabbling in witchcraft, what are you going to do except focus like, do well, I can't trust them, and well, since they would do this to me, what do I need to do in retaliation? Now there's another in, because you're in a place of fear, you're in a place of focus, and now there's another hole worn into your energy field. And the truth of the matter is you go and accuse them and they say no, and then what's next?
Right.
So it just doesn't seem productive to go into, who did it, why, and the conversation that I often have with people that are curious about those things, aside from it doesn't, going after the person doesn't matter, is uh damn, it just left my mind. Maybe I'm not supposed to say it. um Aside from it not mattering, uh oh, if you can't trust them, like if you already don't trust the person, that's enough. Like,
Yeah, that's plenty.
don't wait for the moment where they curse you, send something
Hmm.
negative your way, and then all of a sudden, uh now you have a reason. No, don't
Yeah.
continue on that journey and on that path with them. That's enough.
Well, and like you were saying about what are you going to do? What are you going to do with that information? Even if you don't have an ID on the person, the most you can do is return the energy back to them.
Hmm.
Now, when we do the cleanse and we pull it out in the jar and we put it away, we have ended that connection. We are going to let that energy kind of dissipate in the jar, and then we're going to get rid of it. So it's not continuing to loop like that. But yes, when you send the energy back to somebody, which is a perfectly reasonable response, is what we do with mirror boxes, you are you have to put up a boundary after that. So you're bouncing the energy back to them, but then you have to do boundary work to say, and that's the end of it. This is all
Right.
that we're doing. It's kind of like when you get mad at, or let's say somebody sends you a really shitty text, and you're reading this text going, what the fuck is this? And what are you going to do? Are you going to ignore the text and block them? Or are you going to respond? And if you respond like, who do you think you are? I remember a time when blah 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 blah, and you respond to that text, they're going to want to fire back. So are you then going to send out your retaliatory text and block them? Or are you going to continue the dialogue? And so in any case, energetically, you have to decide, how far do you want this to go? Do you want
Right.
to keep the energy moving back and forth between you, or do you just want the energy to go away? And some people want the energy to be returned and then they want it to go away and be done. So you just have to decide how you're going to manage that interaction. A lot of that has to do with what is the likelihood you're going to have to engage this person again.
Mm.
If it's a parent or a sibling or a workmate, you may have to see them on the regular. And if that's the case, you probably have a greater motivation to try to hit a resolution of some kind. Even if that resolution is, look, you stay on your side of the table, I'll stay on my side of the table.
Right. And so here we have an opportunity. You were bringing up mirror boxes. We have an opportunity to talk about some of the tools that are available to us via cleansing, via healing. So in that conversation, if this is a repeat scenario, again, let's touch back on the fact that it may be something that you need to work on healing. So is it that you feel powerless and you keep entering into these situations where somebody is, touching on your power or trying to remove it from you in some way, shape, or form by, misrepresenting you in front of other people, or spreading rumors or lies, and you feel like the only power you have is to fire back? Well, there may be what kind of energy you're sending out, and is it coming out as important that you need to say it, or is it just, I'm going to make them understand? One, the making them understand piece is a place of power, and I think is valuable when you're doing it for you. But if you're trying to make them understand, I think, I don't know what your experience is, Katrina, but I think you're losing energy in that place, because you cannot decide how they're going to understand what your fire back is.
It's an ego move. It
Yeah.
really is. And that doesn't mean you can't find the right words
Right.
to get them to hear you and to really hear you. Sometimes you can, but in most cases, it is the ego point of saying, I'm going to over explain this to you until you think the way I want you to think.
Right. And you just, I mean, you will feel yourself generating more heat and more energy, and then you will feel wiped out at some
Mm.
point. And these are real markers for that. Um, but as far as the tools are concerned, I'm reminded in our conversation of like what's being sent, what's being exchanged between people. I studied with a shamanic person, and they would talk about putting or visualizing mirrors in your aura so that whatever is sent your way gets sent back out. And it reminds me of the mirror box. And I've been so fortunate to work with so many different cultures and healers and people in my studies that there seems to be like some practices across cultures and across belief systems are better for things than others. Like if I'm doing a soul retrieval on a tonali loss after an egg cleansing, I'm not necessarily going to call in like Archangel Michael and go into the higher realms. I need to work on the earth-based practices that I've garnered from, you know, brujeria or shamanism, or different African practices, because it has to do with something that is so dense. A soul is dense energy, and the density of the loss is also more intense. And I think it's not necessarily like, I tend to think ascension things are not, they don't really have a place for that kind of thing. The ascension process is like, okay, your soul's intact and you're ready to evolve. But I think that there's value in like earth-based practices, like working with the auric field and changing it through intention work, meditation, filling it with auras, or filling it with mirrors rather. And then there was another one that you made me think of as far as protection is concerned. Um, but what kinds of tools are you working with? Well,
Hmm.
I try to remember what I was thinking.
Well, for me, whenever I make recommendations to a client, or even with my own work, the motivation has to completely come from what outcome are you trying to achieve. That then decides a lot about what tools you're going to use.
Right.
So if you're just wanting to protect your energy, shield and reflect, or shield and ground, that's going to be boundary things like brick dust and black salt and fiery wall of protection powder and cascaria and amulets and things like that. If you're wanting to heal that relationship, of course, you're not going to want to block that person out. You're going to want to transmute that energy. And so that might involve a stone grid working, or some candle work and things like that, to engage a more positive conversation time, to be able to open up everybody's minds to things they might not be seeing or hearing. And those are definitely possibilities. We've talked about the extreme ends, which is the ending of a relationship. And that's
Mhm.
not always what it is. Sometimes you just need a time out for a little bit, or you need to go to your corners and think about things and
Right.
then re engage from a different standpoint. So you really think about what you want your outcome to be. Then you can decide what modality is going to best support that. And there are just so many different magical tools that you can use. But in each of these cases, certainly one of the first things you're going to want to do is get a cleansing so that you can get the gunk off of you, especially if it's been a really negative exchange.
Mm.
And I think that when you are back to your organic self, in a way, you are more raw and open to healing than you
Absolutely.
are, when you're just wearing the weight of the world on you. I think it's really hard to get somebody to a healing space if you haven't dug them out of whatever dirt pile they're in.
Right. Absolutely. And the practice that I was considering when you mentioned having to see people again on like a
Hmm.
repeat scenario, maybe at work or something like that, you've had your cleansing, you're working through your healing process because we're never really done. We're living, and so healing is a continuous journey. But you've had your cleansing, and you're worried like they're going to funk up your energy again. Carolyn Mace has a practice that I think up until this point I didn't even realize was maybe a way to return someone's energy, even if it is a curse. And that is at the end of your night, you say, whatever energy that I've absorbed, I send it back, wherever it came from, and any energy that I've given out, I reclaim. And this is, I mean, it's a simple practice. You can do it in your bed, you can do it in your bathtub or your shower, whatever, however ritualized you want to make it, but the intention is powerful. Because how often have you considered that you might have given away energy intentionally or unintentionally? How often do you consider what you may have absorbed intentionally or unintentionally? And so even the call, even the invocation of those things to return or leave
Mhm.
is powerful. And I know in and practices that I've done with that, um, I wake up feeling absolutely refreshed and amazing because I didn't go to sleep with as much stuff.
Sure.
And we collect things in our sleep too. Don't be, don't think that that's not happening. If you're sleeping next to a person, you're going to absorb that. If you're, astral projecting, leaving your body, or, whatever is going on, you are going to collect astral dust and then bring it back with you. And that creates a situation in and of itself that we've talked about. You guys will have to catch that video earlier in our banter. But
Yeah.
we're always absorbing things. So even the intention, as Carolyn Mace has brought as an example, is at least at the end of your day, send it out. And then calling your energy back in the morning is something that I learned from my amazing embodiment teacher. um, to fully embody yourself means there's no space, or actually less space, for other things to get under your auric field and to agitate you. And so when you fully show up, there's less room for those energetic disturbances. And again, I would say that's more along the lines of cleansing than healing, because it's not permanent.
Mhm.
So those are some practices that I definitely recommend for folks.
Oh, definitely good. You know, we hear a lot that the one of the strongest forces energetically is gratitude.
Hmm.
And they talk about that a lot in Course in Miracles and Laws of Attraction, and putting out there how grateful you are for everything is such a fantastic means of manifesting different energy in your life. But I would say a really close second on that, which comes into the conversation we're having, is an uncomfortable subject for people. It's even an uncomfortable thought for people, and that's forgiveness.
Mm.
And that is really, really tough because we associate forgiveness with validation or
Mhm.
with justification for whatever the offense was. And so we
Right.
think if we forgive that person, we are somehow co-opting onto the idea that we understand why they did that, or we accept that they did that, and uh, give them some kind of amnesty. And that's not the case at all with forgiveness. Forgiveness is its own beast, it's very individual. But what happens with forgiveness at its core level is that you are breaking the attachment that your anger and your resentment and your sorrow um, creates with the person who abused you in some way. And so when you can truly forgive, that means I'm letting this go. I will not give this situation any more real estate in my head or in my spirit. I'm releasing it and I'm letting it go. And that to me is one of the most powerful, magical, or energetic things that you can do. It takes a huge amount of willpower because you have to follow that up and reject any intrusive or racing thoughts that start to come for you about that situation, and just say, you know what? I've released it. I've let it go. I'm not going to engage that anymore. There's also a release that happens with forgiveness that says, I have genuinely given up on trying to understand why this happened or how you could do this. I have genuinely given up on making you understand the level of pain and hurt and inconvenience that you caused me. And people don't like to give up on that. They don't like to let that idea of redemption go. And sometimes the only way you can truly have a person no longer have power over you is to surrender to the situation and then release it. And that's true forgiveness. Forgiveness is about not about going to your offender and saying, I forgive you, or writing them a long letter that says, I've thought about this a lot and I forgive you. You're not letting anybody off the hook.
Right.
And they don't even ever have to know you forgave them.
Right.
But it's saying, this does not deserve another moment of my energy. And in order to facilitate my healing process, I have to let this go. If you have cancer, you're not going to spend, hopefully you do spend a time sitting and thinking about why you got cancer, but you're not going to engage cancer with that necessarily. You're
Correct.
going to go through the medical procedures to remove the cancer from your body, but you're not just going to spend the rest of your life sitting and talking to the cancer.
Right.
You're going to take efforts to distance yourself from that. And there are some schools of thought that say that you can just speak with the cancer and have it begin to diminish, but I think that's very rare in actual application.
And it doesn't factor in a lot of things that would not, like a lot of reasons why that would not work. Are you pleading? Are you,
Mhm.
are there regrets involved? Are you, from an energetic standpoint, sometimes cancer can be the accumulation of things over a lifetime. Are you trying to speak to the cancer without letting go of some of the things that have accumulated in and held on and replicated at a
Mhm.
rate that they should have, had experienced cell death? And so,
Right. And things like, why do you have lung cancer? I have lung cancer because I smoked 3 packs of cigarettes a day for 30 years.
right.
Okay, well, what are you going to do? I don't know, but I'm not going to stop smoking. I think I'm just going to talk to my cancer, and ask it why it's there.
Yeah, that's I don't know if I have anything nice to say about that. So I'll leave it alone.
So, energetically speaking, that equates out to, I have all these issues. I keep getting cleansings for them. I'm so therefore I am treating my issues by getting these cleansings. No, you're you're putting a band-aid on the situation by getting the cleansings.
Right. And
You're
expecting, oh, sorry.
No, it's fine. You're not treating the disease, you're treating the symptoms.
Right. And then if the symptom is a person, I thought this was something, if the symptom is a person and you're hoping that a cleansing will remove them from your life without you having to address it. I've seen it happen, but it's again extremely rare. Like, the situations that I've seen it happen are work situations where, a person has gone through a cleansing. But even now, as I recall that client in that situation, after their cleansing, they started working on themselves personally and working on their personal power and being like, what that person did to me, I am releasing that. It no longer triggers me, has a hold on me. And I'm paraphrasing extended work they did on themselves after the cleansing. And it was like there was enough of a buildup of energy that with the cleansing and their inward work, that whatever was there just released and that person was removed by the job. And so, what they understood in that moment was that it was not the cleansing, but the the energy of their effort that released, that unblocked the situation. So
Um,
much like you wouldn't say, I'm going to keep smoking through this circumstance. This person did a great job of finding their power and saying, this is what I'm going to access from now on, rather than disempowerment or feeling like there's nothing I can do.
it's really hard when people come to us and either they're confused about what a cleansing is, which we can mitigate that hopefully by being giving them realistic expectations
Right.
and explanations, but also when they're unwilling to do any kind of work at all to help their situation along. Now, that being said, I did identify cleansing as a passive thing, but you also have to do things to get yourself out of the line of fire
Right.
if that's at all possible. So I just had twice this week, in fact, because I'm thankfully back to work full time now, so I have a little bit more conversation to add. But I had two clients, different clients this week, that said things to me like, I want you to do cleansing on me and tell me if I'm going to find another job. And they didn't intend that as two separate tasks. They wanted the cleansing to tell them if they're going to get another job. And I like that's not the purpose of a cleansing. It might remove obstacles to you getting a job.
Right.
But a reading is what's going to talk to you about, are you going to get another job? And then someone else said, I want you to do a cleansing and tell me if my wife is cheating on me. And those are just two different conversations completely. And so it's so important that people understand what a cleansing is, that is an energetic cleansing of your sacred body systems.
Right.
It's not a divination tool. It's not you know, we might get information as we're doing it.
And I think
Intuitive.
that's the confusion, like the intuition that comes through with sometimes with what's going on.
But also there comes a space where, like we were saying, you've got to figure out what in your life is causing all this contamination to happen and decide, do you want to just keep cleaning up, or do you want to really fix what's underlying that's causing the problems?
I think it could be so powerful to come to the understanding of an addiction to the cleaning up process as
Oh,
well.
yes,
Like
absolutely.
there are people, and if this is you, like there's no judgment, but if you are
Mm-mm,
truly like change the conversation. It's no longer I need cleansings, but okay, after the adrenaline rush, I need to do some cleaning up instead of I just want to be done with this scenario, but
mm-hmm,
you keep going back to the things that excite you to the point of needing a cleansing.
mm-hmm,
I definitely have seen that, like people who just love the thrill of drama,
mm-hmm.
and then they're like, oh, but wash me off too, and it's challenging to consider. But I think that there's power in owning your shit. Like if you like the drama, then you like the drama,
Yeah.
and nothing else to be said about that. And you know, get your cleansing.
Well, and we get that on a spiritual level too. I mean, in that case, we're talking about drama like engaging dramatic people, people that are always shit stirring and creating drama and workplace drama and gossip. Gossip is one of the biggest ways to get contaminated. And
Yeah.
they don't want to stop doing that because that's fun to talk about disadvantaged people. That's fun
Mhm.
to talk about people that are struggling and people that aren't as good as you in some way. It
Right.
elevates you. But then there are the spiritual risk takers and thrill seekers. So I'll have people that are absolutely addicted to demonology. And
Mm,
so they start wanting to call up demons to do their bidding and do this and do that. And pretty soon, inevitably, they're on my doorstep. I've got a demon that won't leave me, or I'm in a pact with the demon and I broke the pact and now they won't go away and they're demanding things from me. So you've got to go in and play mafia negotiator and, figure out how you can appease this demon that's bothering this person, and they go right back out and do the same thing again, and you're like, gosh, this guy just needs to be shot in the head or something. And then you get people that want to astral travel and go out and have sex with disincarnate beings, and they
yeah.
come back into their bodies with these spiritual STDs, and they're wondering why they've got energetic parasites. They're wondering why they've got heaviness in them. It's because you went out there and engaged on an intimate level energy that is not meant to be brought into a corporeal body.
Right.
And so you get them cleaned up and they're going to go out there and do it again. And you
Right.
have these conversations with normal people and they think you're crazy. But when you see it happen over and over, it gets to a place you can no longer deny that this is what's happening.
and it does happen to normal people. Like,
Sure.
don't mistake that. You know,
But
you
I
may
mean people that are actively
apologize.
seeking it out on a regular basis.
Sure, sure.
And it just, I don't want to say it gets annoying. And no, we don't meet that with judgment. We meet that with compassion, but at the same time you have to wonder, when do they stop engaging this process? I remember one lady that was saying, why are all the men I meet alcoholics? Because you pick them up in bars.
I don't mean to laugh, but that does seem a little obvious.
Yeah, you're not meeting them in libraries. You're not meeting them at photography club. You're picking them up literally in a bar. And it's the same thing with people like, I don't know why I keep getting entities in me. Well, because you're going out there and you're sleeping with disincarnate entities that have an energetic force about them that conveys to you. And then they leave you after that explanation and go have entity sex again.
Well, and we touched lightly on tools. I think this is a good place. So, as far as candles,
Mm-hmm.
I believe that candles can be used for cleansing. And then even breaking it down, like some candles can be used for healing work. And those are going to be the ones that you're spending more time with, as opposed to like in my healing sessions, I will use ritual candles to support the energy work that we're doing for the healing process. What is your experience with using candles in healing versus cleansing?
I have a little bit different perspective on it. For me, I use the candles as an additional tool,
Hmm.
sort of like if it were the back brush or something in the shower.
Right.
I struggle with having complete results in using just candle work for
Absolutely.
cleansing.
Absolutely.
I had this conversation with my Llewellyn editor. It didn't go well. She read my book Uncrossing. She loved it, but she said, we need a chapter in here for people that do not have access to a professional healer. And I said, everybody has access to a professional healer in terms of being able to find them and use them. They're doing virtual work now.
Yeah.
Everybody can't do this. And so there are some circumstances where you need a professional healer to help you. And she said, well, we can't do that because Llewellyn is a self-help publisher. So we need to include a chapter on how to comprehensively cleanse yourself. And I said, that's not a thing. That is not a thing. That's like saying, and going back to the same metaphor, I have cancer, but I'm going to do surgery on myself.
Mm, yeah.
It's not. It doesn't work that way. You have to have another set of eyes and an experienced healer to be able to help you do that. I did come up with a process that would help alleviate symptoms, but I am not confident that the self-healing guidelines that I outlined in my book would ultimately be successful in conducting a full cleanse. And I feel the same way about candle work. I don't know that just candle work or just a ritual cleanse bath like we sell would completely do an energetic cleanse in a severe case. I
Right.
think that eventually you need to get your teeth professionally cleaned instead of just brushing them yourself. And so I included that in my book because the publisher 100% required it. That's one of the reasons that I'm returning to self-publication, is because the publisher often has um, objectives that interfere with the ability of me to effectively convey what I want to say.
Mm,
And so, yeah, that's my answer on candles. Is I'm not 100% confident. It can help, though. It can be a great tool for in the interim. The baths and soaps that are good for cleansing. African black soap is fantastic for energetic cleansing. It can help. It can alleviate the symptoms, but I don't know that it's going to pull the entity out or take
right.
the curse away. I think it can help mitigate symptoms.
Absolutely. And that's really what we're talking about here is reducing the symptoms first. And again, being the not being the detective, we aren't going to know, is it did this start with the symptoms? Is it something else? So using candles, using stone grids, that was something. So I do a lot of crystal grids for my healing work, for our meditations, and then we even have classes this Saturday. um, those can be enhancements, the candles, the mirror box, the, what have you. Um, but this is the Tylenol to alleviate what may be causing the repeat headaches in the first place.
Yeah, you're going to have to eventually get that tumor taken out.
Yeah, for sure. So we have covered a lot. If you're checking this on the replay, leave your comments in the comment section so we can see them. What's your experience been with cleansing and healing? What are your belief systems around it? And what did you take away from this conversation? But for now, just remember, it's like cleansing can be the starting process. And this isn't, what we are saying is not necessarily like hard and fast gospel. We'd love to hear your opinion on these things. But cleansing is a great starting process. Healing is what we are supposed to, or rather than saying supposed to, but would be ideal for the long-term work and support of who you are. And I love the phrase, getting back to your organic self. Absolutely love that. So with that, any parting words, Katrina?
Nope.
All right. So we are out of here.
Good.
Thank you for joining us again. Hit that like and subscribe and share, and we'll catch you next time on
See you next
Crossroads
time.
of Cognizance. Bye, guys.